Good morning, afternoon, whatever it is now. Hopefully, y'all can hear me here on from the Hawkeye of the Storm. I don't normally jump onto a live show during the middle of the day on a Monday, but boy, transfer portal is in serious flux here in the first week following the conclusion of the 2022 college football regular season. And I figured, you know what? I'm not at my home base right now, visiting some family, but thought I would jump on and discuss this news. Yes, Michigan quarterback CADE McNamara has entered his name into the transfer portal. Now, why do we care about that here in Iowa? Well, the answer to that question should be obvious. But I thought it was interesting. First of all, I appreciate the people who follow me on Twitter. As soon as this news dropped, and I was trying to somewhat stay off Twitter, kind of try to take a day or two where I'm not connected to social media, not connected to Iowa related news. It's been a long season, tenuous season. I've enjoyed all of our live streams, all of our call-in shows, just like this one. But I thought this was an opportunity to that I couldn't pass up to jump on with whoever's available during the noon hour here on a Monday. So the news dropped that CADE McNamara was entering the transfer portal, and I had I don't even know how many people tag me, reach out to me via direct message on Twitter, basically trying to get me the news ASAP, which I appreciate. And we're talking within the first 5 to 10 minutes. So I appreciate that. People know I have been on the Iowa transfer portal quarterback initiative, if you want to call it that, for the better part of a year. If you are new to following this channel, and I mean new as in you started following this channel during the past few months, maybe right prior to football season or during the course of football season, and you haven't looked back at past content, there is nobody out there, folks, that was more avid that Iowa needed to go to the transfer portal at the quarterback position last offseason than me. I'm not saying I'm the only one who said it, but I'm just telling you that right now. I'm comfortable saying that there's nobody that advocated for that more than me. Okay. And I hate to say that I was right. I'm not the only one who was right. Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, was avid in his stance on this as well. But I think this season, which ended up being a 7-5 football season, I think this season proved that, yes, Iowa does need a serious upgrade at quarterback. Yes, they need help along that offensive line. Yes, they need help at wide receiver. Yes, they need help in play calling. I think scheme is a problem. We've talked about these things before. But it needs to be made clear, folks, regardless of what you think is the number one problem with Iowa's offense, it needs to be clear. You need to be clear on this. Quarterback is a massive problem. Whether you think it's 1A, 1B, 2, 3, it's a problem. And Coach Don Patterson, who joins us after every Iowa football game, brought that up the other day, and I thought the way he described it was perfect. He noted, somebody asked him, would you prioritize, if you were in this situation where you're looking at the transfer portal as a head coach, as an offensive coordinator, should Iowa target offensive linemen or should they target quarterbacks? And his answer was simple. You can have one quarterback that makes up for a comedy of errors along that offensive line. Doesn't mean it's going to fix all of your issues, but one breakdown along a line of 5 guys up front, can be the difference of a successful run play or successful pass play, and vice versa. If you can have 5 guys that are in unison, great. But you can have a quarterback. You look at the best quarterbacks, not only in college football, but in the league. We're talking guys who are mobile, guys who can make plays in tough positions, tough situations, step up in the pocket, make throws on time, on target. One guy at quarterback can make up for a comedy of errors, if you will, along that offensive line. Doesn't mean they don't still need help at offensive line, but I think Coach Patterson was clear. You rather target a guy at quarterback who can help account for some of the issues along that offensive line, because one offensive lineman in the portal is not going to fix Iowa's issues. Could it help? Absolutely. They need help at right tackle. Jack Plum is gone. I mean, the guy wasn't playing great anyways. He struggled as the season went on, but he was the best they had. Right now, they're struggling at center. Logan Jones is a first-year center. We understand the issues up front. So one guy along that offensive line is not going to fix their issues in pass protection, not going to fix their issues with run blocking, consistency in the run game, although they ran pretty well against Nebraska last game of the season. but a quarterback would help immensely. It's not going to fix all the problems. All right. And I want to also preface this live stream that we're doing here with this. I want to make it clear this live stream is not based on any source, any information I have directly tied to CADE McNamara. All right. I've not spoken with anybody in CADE's camp. I don't have connections with CADE McNamara. But I can tell you this. This is a guy that we have talked about in the past, a guy that most people thought would enter the portal. J.J. McCarthy has secured that quarterback position. Certainly his performance against Ohio State on Saturday. If there was any doubt that CADE McNamara was, or excuse me, that J.J. McCarthy was the quarterback of the future at Michigan, it was that game on Saturday. Tremendous performance for a Michigan team that now is playing for a Big Ten title on Saturday. Would be their second straight Big Ten title. So it was expected that CADE would enter the portal. Did I expect him to enter the portal when he did? The answer to that question is no. I did not expect him to enter the portal when he did. I expected him to wait at least until the end of the full season. I'm talking at least past Saturday, right? The fact that he chose to enter the portal now is interesting. You've got guys entering the portal because Luke Fickell's leaving Cincinnati, including a former Iowa recruit, a cornerback recruit that had named Iowa in his top 6. Amari Snowden, who's a cornerback out of Michigan. So now he's back on the market. You've got the changes going on in Nebraska. You've got the offensive coordinator from South Carolina jumping ship. All I can say is this is a carousel, folks, and you can look at the situation in Nebraska and the situation at Wisconsin and say, hey, they're unstable. There's too much movement. Players don't want to, play for a coach that's jumping ship or has a history of taking another job over. That happens everywhere. And in the era of the transfer portal, which gives the power to the players are, I think it's safe to say, players are less likely to give stability. I mean, there's some players, don't get me wrong, that are going to prioritize stability in your coaching staff. And there have been Iowa players that came to Iowa and they said right here on this show, part of the reason was the stability of Kirk Ferentz and his staff. But I think players understand this is the era. They grew up in this era. All right. And I don't mean grew up we're talking the last 4 to 5 years, this new transfer portal era. And now with NIL, stability, I just don't think as big of a priority as it has been. So I think we need to understand this. And the bottom line is there is reason for urgency in Iowa City. All right. With McNamara entering the portal when he did, with a couple of other I think guys that at least should be looked at by the Iowa staff. Doesn't mean you offer everybody. I tweeted something out earlier. The Tulsa starting quarterback entered the portal. Ohio's starting quarterback Brett Gabbert entered the portal the other day. You got Georgia Tech's dual threat entering the portal. When I tweet that out, I think people assume that means, hey, Iowa should go after him. That's not what I'm implying. But my point is these are proven guys. Brett Gabbert's a proven guy. A kid from Georgia Tech, a kid from Tulsa. Certainly CADE McNamara won a Big Ten championship, took that team to a college football playoff. Is he the next Brad Banks? No, he's not. But the dude's a proven winner. All right. And I cannot imagine a scenario on this green earth in which it would make sense for Iowa to not go after CADE McNamara unless they know something, some off the field issue that's completely unknown to the world of mankind as it lies currently. There is no reason for Iowa to not entertain this idea. I think they will, folks. This is my prediction. I think Iowa will pursue something here. How hard they pursue something, will they be successful in their pursuit? Those are all questions. You can debate me on that all you want. I've heard people say over and over and over again, well, why would anybody want to come to play quarterback at Iowa? That's not the situation at hand, right? Once we hear that Iowa has reached out to a quarterback in the portal, then we can have that conversation. But I need to see first from Kirk Ferentz and this staff that, hey, we're willing to go to the portal at quarterback. I've been told that Iowa plans on doing that, for lack of a better word. I've been told from multiple people, all right, various people on this and trustworthy people that Iowa does plan on entertaining the portal at the quarterback position. And it makes sense. Petrus ain't coming back, barring something unforeseen and I think unfortunate. No offense to Spencer Petrus. I think that'd be unfortunate for both parties. Alex Padilla is not the future at quarterback. Does Iowa have any confidence in Joey Labus and Carson May? Carson May's a true freshman this year. Do you expect him to just take over next year? They need a quarterback, folks. And yes, this is relevant. So anybody who wants to say it's irrelevant, you're welcome to have that opinion. By the way, link to join the show is in the description. If you joined right off the bat, you may not have gotten it because I added that to our description. But here's what I'm going to do. We've got Tony who's waiting on hold to chat. I don't have the phone lines. Again, I'm not in my studio, my at-home studio. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to throw the link up in the live chat as well. So if you want to hop on here, maybe you're on your lunch break at work, you're welcome to do that. Just added it to the live chat, and we can talk the news of CADE McNamara, who has entered the portal and should absolutely, 100% without a doubt, be a strong consideration of Iowa and the Iowa offense. Whether it's Brian Ferentz operating the offense or whether it's someone else, that should not stop Kirk Ferentz. Kirk Ferentz, this is a move that needs to happen. We've been talking about it for months. And let's hope that Iowa makes that move, at least pursues CADE McNamara. And maybe McNamara's got plans to go somewhere else. I can tell you this, folks. This news dropped, and like I said, I had a flood of people reaching out to me, tagging me in this post, which I appreciate. Here is what Bruce Feldman, the Athletics' Bruce Feldman, tweeted out shortly after CADE McNamara entered the portal. He says, and I quote, "Iowa is a school to keep an eye on for former Michigan starting QB CADE McNamara. Will be interesting to see his next move." Now, you may say, well, that's just speculation. Sure, maybe that's just speculation. Bruce Feldman, obviously a very credible college football reporter, works for The Athletic. I don't follow Bruce Feldman. I probably should because he is well known in this industry. I'll say this. Oftentimes, and I'm not saying it's a rule, I'm not saying it's the case with this situation, but oftentimes when there are tweets out like this, it's because there's smoke, and where there's smoke, there's fire. I'm not saying Bruce Feldman is saying that CADE McNamara is a definite Hawkeye, but my point is I don't necessarily buy into the idea that Bruce Feldman is just speculating on this based on his own ideas. I would not be surprised if Bruce Feldman of The Athletic has some inside information on this. So you take that for what you will. Perfect example, you recall last year, Charlie Jones entered the portal earlier this year. Charlie Jones entered the portal. How many media people tweeted out shortly thereafter, well, Purdue's a team to keep an eye on? Well, again, where there's smoke, there is oftentimes fire. Let's add Tony to the mix, who hopped on here on short notice. Tony the Tiger, how you doing, sir?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing good, man. You are on the ball today.
I've got a very, very free schedule. We'll just say that I'm a stay-at-home dad, so I've got a lot of flexibility.
So are the kids sleeping? Or are they?
Yeah, the 1-year-old's down for the nap, so she's out for the count.
So when did you first hear? I'm just curious. When did you first hear this portal news? Are you active on Twitter?
Yes. I saw it about the same time you did, and I agree with you. Like, these national writers aren't just gonna, let's just say, throw stuff to the wall and hope it sticks. They usually have a reason. I mean, they do sometimes, but like a guy like him has so many followers and he's, been around for a while. It's not a Johnny come lately with him. He's been around. He knows people. He's not just throwing this out there and hoping it sticks. I think he has a reason, like you said.
I'm not going to use my show, my platform here, Tony, as collateral in predicting that CADE McNamara ends up at Iowa, but I absolutely agree with what you just said. I don't follow Bruce Feldman on Twitter, but the guy is more than credible in this industry. One of the more credible sources, I think, in the industry. I think of one of the more active off seasons in college football reporting, and it was 2020 with COVID, and which conferences are playing, which conferences aren't playing. Who are the people at the forefront of that? Bruce Feldman, Nicole Auerbach. Unfortunately, Paul Feinbaum, who ends up being more of a talking head, but he is a guy who I think of when I think of college football and the media. So as far as the fit for CADE McNamara, I mean, you watched him last year, Tony, against Iowa in the college or the Big Ten championship game. The dude would be able to, I have no question for anybody who wants to doubt that he could pick up Iowa's system or Iowa's offense. I have no question that he, given his ability to throw out of the pocket, given his age. I believe he's a graduate transfer. I believe he has 2 years of remaining. I think I should probably confirm this since we're talking about him. But I don't buy into the notion that the offense is too difficult for a guy to learn. Look at all the quarterbacks in the country, across the country. We've brought them up: Bo Nix, Michael Penix. I mean, go down the list. Guy who beat Iowa on Saturday, Casey Thompson, Adrian Martinez. I don't buy into the notion that Iowa's offense is more complex than any of those offenses. And if it is, and that's what's preventing Iowa from being able to make a move like this, then you better make some wholesale changes in the next month or two while pursuing somebody of this caliber in the transfer portal. And one more thing, and then I'll let you go, Tony. I'm sure you got something else to add into this. I don't agree with the people out there who say, why would any quarterback want to play for Iowa? So let's not forget that Iowa did play for a Big Ten championship last year. This year, they were one game away from playing for a Big Ten championship. There is ample reason why a quarterback would want to play for Iowa. Now, some may not because they don't believe it helps their stock, but there's ample reason why a quarterback would want to play for
Iowa. I agree 100%. And I was going to Google just as you were typing the same thing about CADE. He actually has 3 years left. He can apply for a medical hardship this year, get the COVID year, and one more year. So that would fall in line with, how Ferentz wants to keep continuity or stability. I mean, he's not going after this guy for just 1 year. He could be a 3-year player and a 3-year starter at Iowa as a quarterback.
Excellent point. Now, here's what I'll say too on this whole situation. And I've said it before, but for anybody who hasn't heard my take on Iowa's quarterback situation, with Petrus likely gone, with Padilla, who I believe to be gone, yes, they have I think a really strong prospect in 23. I really like Marco Lainez. You've heard me talk about him in the past, Tony. But you see Kirk Ferentz starting who would Kirk Ferentz trust more? A quarterback out of the portal who's been to a Big Ten championship, won a Big Ten championship, taken a team to the college football playoff, or a true freshman who's got great upside, but literally he may not get here till fall. I mean, his ability to enroll early is very much in question. So I guess it's Carson May, who's a second-year guy next year, or Joey Labus, who has been less than a stellar endorsee of Iowa's coaching staff.
No, I agree. If you're looking at Ferentz and his history, CADE would fit perfectly. Now, what was the only skill position player that I can think of off the top of my head, and I don't follow football as much, is that Stylianos, the tight end? Wasn't he a transfer portal, or didn't they get a tight end out of the portal? Now, how many years did he have left when he had 2?
He had 2, but he's burned one this year.
But I mean, I'm just trying to think back of, we think that Kirk, and we know by history that Kirk really doesn't like the portal. He's not really a portal guy. I mean, he doesn't dive into it like other programs do and other coaches do. He's not. Well, that's not his coach.
Let me just say, he's planning to use the portal more than he ever has this year.
Hopefully,
from everything I'm just saying, from everything that I've been told, and some of which has just been rumors, some of which has been from credible sources who are well in touch with the program, he is planning on using the portal. Now, quarterback is a position of need, and there was a point earlier in the year that that was the word on the street that Iowa was all for going to the portal at quarterback. But that was a couple months ago. I haven't heard anything different to counteract that. I don't believe anything's changed with what has changed. What has changed from 2 months ago? They haven't. The production has not been any better at that position. In fact, you could argue that it's actually less positive because they've gotten a look at what Padilla gives you, and I think there is some upside to what Padilla does give you. But does anybody sitting here right now believe that Alex Padilla is the quarterback of the future? I don't. I like Alex Padilla, but he's not a guy who's probably going to lead you to a Big Ten championship anytime soon.
Yeah. Just a quick yes or no. What do you think's more likely to happen? Iowa lands impact quarterback in the portal, or Fran getting an impact big man. Seeing as both coaches, I mean, Fran dived into the portal, but both of them are very, I don't want to say anti-portal, but they don't like to use that option.
At this point, I mean, right? Like, what's going to happen sooner? Is that what you're asking?
Or like, I guess next year. You really can't say sooner because it's easier for the football program to happen sooner due to the.
Tony, this is my prediction. Iowa will get a quarterback in the portal this offseason. That's my prediction. So I don't believe. I think that comes first because Fran. I mean, as you know, if Iowa doesn't have a quarterback from the transfer portal by the end of basketball season, then something went horribly wrong. Something went horribly wrong. So Fran, don't get me wrong. I believe Fran will probably go to the portal again next year, although they get Owen Freeman in next year. But again, true Frosh, what will happen with Ogundele, what will happen with Mulvey. But no, I believe quarterback, a move there will happen first. That'd be my prediction.
Oh, sounds good. Again, I'll remind everyone, like, subscribe, get the merch. I got that on the way, and use your Amazon link.
Appreciate it, Tony. We appreciate your support here, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, have a good day.
All right, let's track right along. We've got CJ. CJ, welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Good. So I have a question somewhat. I saw on Twitter that Miami might fire the O-line coach, and he was the former O-line coach for Michigan. Do you think that Kirk should bring him in to help bring CADE in? Because when he was at Michigan, they won like the Broyles Award or whatever it was for like the best O-line. So do you think that they could bring him in at like OC and maybe keep Brian on somewhere, and maybe help him bring in like other old Michigan targets too, like wide receivers or O-linemen?
That's an interesting line of thought. Well, first of all, I don't even know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about, but I don't have any information on this guy. So you're telling me he just got fired from Miami?
No, but somebody said that the line's like really bad and stuff, and that there's just reports out there that they might get rid of him, and that he was I think he was the old O-line coach for Michigan last year when they won like the Broyles Award in 2021.
Well, if he's an O-line coach at Michigan, I doubt he has some great close relationship with CADE McNamara.
That's true.
He's not his position coach, so I don't. I mean, again, without having any inside information on that, CJ, I would doubt that there's a connection there. The other thing is too, has this guy been an offensive coordinator? You're suggesting that he could potentially take over as offensive coordinator. I mean, is he qualified to call plays? I mean, he's been an O-line coach. Has he ever been a play caller?
That I don't know, but the only reason I say that is because you usually see like in college that like O-line coaches get transferred up to OC, so that's why I only brought that up.
Yeah, I would say without knowledge of his play calling background, the fact that he wasn't CADE's position coach, and here's the other thing, CJ. This is my take. I understand some people want George Barnett fired or they want him moved. I'm not saying you do. I think you give George Barnett another year. He's been here 2 years. He inherited a mess. As much as people want to act like Tim Polisek's lines were great, they weren't. Go back to 2018. So I think George Barnett deserves another year. And if you're going to fire George Barnett so that you can retain Brian on staff, that's almost worse than keeping Brian as the OC. I mean, what an unfair thing to George Barnett to be let go of his job 2 years in, all because Kirk's son doesn't have another option. I would hate to see that happen. And I like to think Kirk would not do that. As much as he values his son and feels obligated to help his son, I would just hope that he's got a little bit more, morality in him to not do that to a guy in George Barnett, who I don't believe deserves that at this point.
Another question is if you were the head coach right now, what positions on offense and defense would you go after in the portal?
If I was what?
The head coach right now. Like, would you go after line, wide receiver, quarterback?
Quarterback's number one. I mean, it starts with quarterback. I know some people don't agree with that, and I agree with Don Patterson, CJ, who made the comment on a recent show that one quarterback, although it doesn't necessarily fix your issues completely when you're dealing with problems up front, but it can make up for some of the issues along that offensive line. Whereas, Iowa's got issues at right tackle. They got an issue at center. I don't think they've played particularly well at right guard either. They've had some injury there with Bo Stevens late in the year. So I think you certainly go after linemen in the portal as long as they fit your scheme, fit your system. But quarterback is my number one priority. And then after that, it sounds like Iowa's going to go to the portal at wide receiver. So those would be probably my top three. I think O-line and wide receiver are probably 2A and 2B, but quarterback is number one in my book.
2 more questions. Do you think Iowa keeps Copeland on the staff, the wide receiver coach?
Do I think they will, or do I think they should?
Both.
I have nothing against Kelton Copeland. All I know is it does not appear that he's doing a stellar job. I mean, call a spade a spade. He seems like a real nice guy. I talked with him at Media Day. I'm sure he's working hard, but they've struggled to recruit receivers. The 2023 class, as you know, CJ, has been a struggle.
It's been awful.
I hope that, some of these guys pan out. I really do. Alex Mota's a good prospect, but, they landed Jarrett Bowie, who I think was the best they could do. And then they landed the kid from was it out west? Now I'm blanking on the kid's name, the 6'5" guy they just landed a week ago. But my point is they've struggled to recruit wide receivers. And here's the other thing. They have struggled to recruit wide receivers since he's been here. So he brings in Brandon Smith and Nasmir Smith-Marset that first year. After that, it's been Bruce, Keegan, and that's it.
Yeah.
Brody Brecht maybe ends up being a guy that you look back on and say, hey, that was a really good grab. I still don't know what I know he acted the other day in an interview that I watched that his priority is still football. But, I mean, look, the guy's got an opportunity to be a pro in baseball. So
yeah, definitely.
That, and then, where's the development of Jacob Bostic in a year from now? Very much up in the air. Deontay Vines. They're going to lose Reganey. They lost Charlie Jones. I give them credit for going after Jones. They got him from Buffalo, but never really used him to his full potential on offense. So, and I know it's a long filibustering way of answering your question, CJ, but I think Kelton Copeland should be at least on the hot seat. Doesn't mean I think he should be fired, but I think he's got to step it up in some way or another because wide receiver play has not been great. And they just gave him a raise in the offseason leading up to this season. So wide receivers play has got to be better, and that falls on the position coach.
Yeah. My last question is, do you think that Iowa will go after like a linebacker or another corner in the portal? Just because like linebacker, I get they have like Jacobs and stuff, but I feel like Benson and Campbell leaving is massive. And for a corner, you can always use corners anywhere. Like, I mean, look, this year we had to go to a 15th one on the depth chart because all the injuries are like people weren't stepping up.
Linebacker is an interesting one. Do we know that Seth Benson's leaving? I don't know that. Is he?
Yeah,
publicly? I mean, he could come back. I think that'd be huge if he could come back. You're going to get. It sounds like you're going to get Justin Jacobs back. I think they're fine at linebacker, frankly.
Yeah.
I'd like to. One guy that nobody likes to talk about is the kid from Ballard, and then he went up to Minnesota, whose name is escaping me. Man, that's terrible. I forgot the kid's name, but. They've got some prospects, and Jay Higgins, I'm assuming, looking at his eligibility, he's got another year. You've got Logan Klemp, who got some time late. But, yeah, Benson coming back would be huge for them. And I don't know that – is Benson an NFL prospect at 6'1"? He's kind of undersized. Jack Campbell obviously is gone. But Benson could come back. So if he leaves, maybe you look somewhere in the portal. But when's the last time Iowa went and got a portal linebacker? They went to the portal – and grabbed defensive linemen. They obviously went to the portal and grabbed a tight end last year. They've tried they've done it with James Butler at running back. Linebackers is an interesting one. And they've tried at cornerback as well. But I would guess that linebacker is not a heavy priority unless Benson leaves along with Campbell and maybe Justin Jacobs, I don't know, last second changes his mind. But it sounded like from what we heard from Seth Wallace a few weeks ago that Jacobs is coming back.
I wish you can get coaches in the transfer portal.
Hey, I mean, isn't that kind of what's happening across the country?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
I mean, Luke Fickell, the difference with coaches, you're right, CJ, but the difference with coaches, they don't got to enter a portal.
Yeah.
Anybody can just reach out to a coach and just say, hey, we want you. We're going to give you this much. And look at Luke Fickell. I mean, one day he was the head coach at Cincinnati and about to join the Big 12 conference, and all of a sudden he's the head coach at Wisconsin. So anybody who doesn't like the portal because it gives too much power to the players, well, the coaches have had this much power for forever. I mean,
yeah, look at Lincoln Riley. He literally left at midnight on a day and didn't really tell anybody until he got to Southern California. So
exactly, and look at what they've done. They've got a chance to go to the college football playoff in year one, as does Chip Kelly, who did, or not Chip Kelly, Brian Kelly, who did the exact same thing to Notre Dame. So, you know, this idea that we want this holistic, everything's got to be fit in. You know, we've got to fit everything into a holistic approach or viewpoint of college football. That's not the way things work anymore. Teams win with Jimmies and Joes, and a lot of these Jimmies and Joes are using the transfer portal. They're coaches, as far as coaches who are big names, guys like Lincoln Riley, guys like now Luke Fickell, Matt Rules. I really like that hire for Nebraska. These guys are hopping around and making programs better in a hurry. Now, sometimes it doesn't work. Scott Frost is a perfect example of it. Never worked at Nebraska. There are examples of quarterbacks not working other places. You can always come up with anecdotal evidence that supports your cause, but it doesn't mean that that's the rule. And I think Iowa understands to an extent now that you cannot continue to expect to compete at a high level without the transfer portal, and especially as you've got teams around you upgrading.
That was actually going to be my last question was, what are your thoughts on people saying that Iowa is in big trouble right now with the whole like coaching staff when Wisconsin just picked up Fickell, Nebraska picked up Rule, we're going to add Lincoln Riley and UCLA. Do you think that Iowa has to start modernizing the team a little bit? Because if they don't, they're going to start falling down more, because like Illinois is getting better. Minnesota is just coming off a 9-win season. Like I said, Wisconsin just got a new coach. So I feel like right now Iowa's like 4th or 5th on in the Big Ten West like rankings, as in like how they're treating the coaching staff.
You know, CJ, I never doubt. You know, I shouldn't say I shouldn't ever doubt Kirk Ferentz, because in a way he just finds a way to, just when you think he's down in the dumps. I mean, 2020 is a perfect example. They're 0-2. They got this lawsuit pending.
Yeah.
It's just been announced. What do? They rattle off 6 straight. This year they're 3-4. They rattle off 4 straight. The offense is terrible. We know that. Kirk is not getting any younger. He refuses to use the portal. They've got an offensive coordinator who is a result of nepotism that's not working out. So one could certainly assume and jump to that conclusion, CJ, that they're going to be falling behind in the arms race here, because Brett Bielema was going nowhere. I don't think PJ Fleck's going anywhere. And Jeff Brom just won a Big Ten West title, so he's certainly not leaving anytime soon, unless I suppose Louisville's tried to get him in the past. I don't know what their status and their head coaching job is, where that's at right now. But my point is, there's a lot of stability across this division. The divisions are going to be realigned, which probably hurts you even more, because you're either going to get USC, UCLA, or maybe somebody from the East like Penn State, or maybe even a Michigan that joins the division. No, I agree with you. This is a very tedious time. And Luke Fickell, I mean, he's about as safe of a hire, I think. And I'd love to get Mark Rogers' perspective on this. I think he's as safe of a hire as anybody out there.
Yeah.
So I have no reason to believe that. I mean, do you have any doubt, CJ, that Luke Fickell's going to get it done at Wisconsin? I don't.
Oh, I don't. I think he's like one of only a few guys that when he was on the Buckeyes, he beat Hawkeyes 4 times. I know he wasn't the head coach, but he was still a D coordinator and stuff, and they beat us 4 times. And I think he's actually a better hire than Rule is, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, there's zero question in my mind right now that moves like this, if you're going to continue in this era of the transfer portal, I don't care who you are, as great as Kirk Ferentz has been at being resilient, for the sake of this offense and for the sake of the next couple of years when divisions are realigned, once you get some stability at Nebraska and Wisconsin, which I believe are going to come, I'm more confident in the Fickle hire. But Rule, I mean, the guy's got quite a resume in college as well. You have to go for the big fish in the portal, and CADE right now is the biggest name in the portal. I mean, he is. So
yeah, and we're in trouble if Jim Leonard goes to Nebraska. I think, because if he makes that Nebraska defense like he makes the Wisconsin defense at their prime, they were really good.
you're saying that you're saying that you think Jim Leonard could end up the DC at Nebraska?
Yeah, that's what I'm just saying. Like, there's no like reports on it or anything, but Nebraska fans on Twitter are clamoring for it, and I'm like, if he ends up there with like Mickey Joseph is a good wide receiver coach. He's put like 8 wide receivers in the NFL. If he stayed there with Jim Leonard, that team's gonna be dangerous too.
Yeah, and I have no reason to believe that will happen either. But Jim Leonard now becomes a major candidate across the country.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm a Packers fan. I wish they'd hire him. I wish they'd hire him, but
yeah, no, he'll be a big name as well.
okay, so I'll let you go. Thanks for talking.
Thank you, CJ. Appreciate the call, sir. All right, folks. As I said here a minute ago, it should be in the live stream if you want to hop on and talk about the news that CADE McNamara is entering the portal. And no, I see some people in here. Does this mean Iowa? Does this live stream mean that there's news that Iowa has contacted McNamara? No, I don't. That's not why I'm live right now. But I do believe that this is. I do believe that where there's smoke, there's fire, and I'd like to think that Bruce Feldman's tweet. I saw RJ Young, who's a guy who I believe works for Fox Sports. He tweeted something out about it as well, just that he thought it would make a lot of sense if Iowa pursued CADE McNamara. I have a hard time believing that these guys are just throwing, like Tony said earlier, mud at the wall. This is a very accurate comment. Kirk has spoken highly of CADE McNamara as well. He kind of fits into what Kirk Ferentz wants. Maybe not what Iowa fans want, because a lot of fans would prefer a dual threat guy who like Brad Banks, who's running all over the football field. But McNamara has been really solid. I mean, he held off JJ last year. One could have argued that he wasn't any. I mean, I don't think JJ was any better in the 2 games. You know, Jim Harbaugh went with the weird approach of playing one game earlier in the year this season, and then playing the other in the following game. And I didn't think CADE was any worse than JJ. I actually, at a point, had he not been injured, I had said before the Iowa game that maybe you mix in CADE McNamara a bit against Iowa, because Iowa's offense is so bad. The last thing you need, the only thing that would really, I think for Michigan's sake, the only thing that would hurt you in that game against the Hawks would be a plethora of turnovers. And CADE McNamara is a guy who takes care of the ball. You can consider him a game manager. And of course, McNamara was hurt, so that was a moot point. And JJ played okay against Iowa. But JJ was unbelievable against Ohio State on Saturday, if you watch that football game. Michigan man Jason says, I said months ago, CADE would be a great fit in Iowa because he plays a similar style to Iowa as a game manager, Iowa likes to play a pro-style run-first offense. Now, Justin, oh my goodness. CADE isn't much of an upgrade? You're telling me that CADE McNamara, you actually believe, Justin, that CADE McNamara isn't an upgrade from Spencer Petras and Alex Padilla? You have a right to your opinion, but I could not disagree with you more. The numbers, and you may say it's a result of everything else. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. And can I give you data to support that? No, but you're certainly not going to be able to give me data that supports that CADE isn't much of an upgrade, because his numbers aren't even close to the numbers that Spencer Petras, and mainly Spencer Petras. We haven't seen Alex Padilla enough, besides in a few games last year, to support the notion that CADE is any better than Alex Padilla. But I think the eye test would tell you that he is. And just looking at CADE McNamara's stats, and I'll read you these. Yes, he's playing with better skill position talent around him, better guys up front. In 2021, all right, a year in which Michigan not only beat Ohio State, won the Big Ten championship, and went to the college football playoff. These are CADE McNamara's stats. 64% completion percentage, 2,600 yards through the air, an average of 8 yards per attempt, which is solid. 15 touchdowns, 6 picks, a 142 passer rating. 142 passer rating, all right? Spencer Petras. Let's look at Spencer Petras' stats in the year. Well, we'll look at both. Let's look at 2022, all right? 56% through the air, 1,700 yards, 6 yards per attempt, 5 touchdowns, 5 picks, 110 passer rating. You're telling me that CADE McNamara isn't an upgrade? Come on now. You have a right to your opinion. I totally disagree. I agree with Blake here. If Iowa doesn't at least reach out to CADE, I don't have any more words. I said that even last year, but this year, after we've seen even more evidence that Iowa's offense is in desperate need of an upgrade at quarterback, what in the world are you doing? Here's a comment from KS Shub. If that's how you say your username, sir. What does Iowa do about getting some receivers? Well, they're going to have to go to the portal there as well. I think I would be surprised if they don't get at least one receiver in the transfer portal, maybe a couple. Again, I'm just going based on what I've been told, that from people well connected to the program, that Iowa has planned on going to the portal at wide receiver for quite some time, and has planned on going to the portal at quarterback as well. Chase, appreciate the super chat, Chase. I think Chase is one of the ones that sent me this news as soon as it broke. So appreciate Chase making himself a part of this show. He says, if Bruce Feldman is hearing some news about Iowa right after CADE declares, something is happening. Rumors about CADE have been popping up for weeks before, too. Interesting coincidence. And let's not forget, Chase, we've been talking about CADE McNamara and the potential for him maybe coming to Iowa at some point. People have, not just us, people have been talking about that as it relates to Iowa, not just for weeks, I'd say for months. Since he lost that job at Michigan, we knew Iowa was going to struggle at quarterback. They struggled since in week one. Moving forward, we realized that there was not a big upgrade from 2021 to 2022. And so it does not surprise me that Bruce Feldman would suggest this, RJ Young and other people out there. Now, question is, would CADE McNamara, even if Iowa does reach out, that's the first step, right? You reach out, would CADE McNamara want to play at Iowa? Because I think he'll have other options. For the record, we don't know what the portal at quarterback would look like across the country, but CADE McNamara will be one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the portal unless there's some major changes across the country as far as the coaching carousel is concerned. We've already seen some of those changes with Luke Fickell hopping from Cincinnati to Wisconsin, but I don't think it's going to be as active of a year as it was last year with guys like Bo Nix, with guys like Keaton Slovis and Adrian Martinez. I mean, just going down the list, the kid from Indiana, Michael Penix. So would not be shocked to see Iowa make a move here. And if they don't, shame on Iowa. Erica, does CADE have any connections to Iowa at all? That's a great question. And I haven't even looked at CADE and his recruiting. I can pull this up real quick while we're on this live. CADE McNamara, of course, a 2019 prospect, 4-star recruit from Reno, Nevada. Kind of an interesting grab there for Michigan. And he was offered by Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Tennessee, USC, had some obviously high major offers. But Iowa not on that list. So I don't believe Iowa recruited him at all out of high school. 2019, would that have been the Alex Padilla class? I think it was. So I'm not aware of any connections. However, there could have been connections formed in recent months. Let's just say that. Let's see. Blue Dove PDX. I've been on the JJ McCarthy train, but why would CADE be interested in Iowa until coaching changes are made? CADE can do better. Well, Iowa may know something we don't. In fact, I would guess that Kirk has an idea of what he's going to do moving forward. Is Brian going to pursue something in the NFL? Is he hireable somewhere in the NFL? Kirk obviously has connections. There were rumors last spring that Brian was looking to jump to the league. I don't think he had a safe landing spot, but given the struggles again this year, the offense taking another step back, can't get much worse than 130th in total offense. Who's to say that Kirk and Brian don't already have a plan here in place that would involve a change at that position? I'm not saying Paul Christ is going to be the next OC, but you see what I'm saying. These things could have been in the works for a while, and it's just not public yet. And it's not going to be public until at least after the bowl game. Now, CADE McNamara, we don't know what's his timeline like. If he's already been in contact with in Iowa or someone else, he could have a decision made this week for all we know. There are other quarterbacks that wait weeks and months to make these decisions. So we'll just have to wait and see. I had not heard anything about Oregon State, but I also don't follow Michigan like you do. Casey says he didn't think you'd see me live until tomorrow night. Well, I didn't think I'd see me live until tomorrow night. Dennis says, why would CADE want to come to Iowa? Iowa has nothing to offer him other than a good education. Dennis, I understand you're upset about Iowa, but Iowa, despite the horrendous offense and despite quarterback play that's completely inept, they won 7 games this year and were 1 win against Nebraska away from going to the Big Ten championship. You're telling me that Iowa's defense special teams unit does not give CADE McNamara or any quarterback in the portal an opportunity or a landing spot where he's actually able to win football games and win on the big stage? There are some quarterbacks that probably would never consider coming here because of the style of play, because Iowa does not have a pass-first offense. But again, there are some guys who may consider Iowa because they want to be a part of a change. They want to be the guy that came in and changed things at quarterback. I don't know if that's CADE. His play style, I think, fits into what Kirk Ferentz wants. If he wants a pass-first offense, he's not going to get that here. But I think to say that there is no reason other than academics for CADE McNamara to want to come to Iowa, I think is just not correct, with all due respect. Hair trigger, this myth around Iowa's offense being complex needs to end. It's obviously not. I'm not doubting that there's some complexities, but if there are complexities, then those complexities need to be adjusted. I'll say that. Because if that's preventing Iowa from landing a big fish in the portal, as I said earlier, shame on Iowa for not making those changes. Again, I'm kind of behind in the comments here, but Kyle comments, he says, if I was a QB, I would view Iowa as a team with everything necessary to win a title. Exactly. And myself as the missing piece. Now, again, we're not implying, Kyle, as you know, there are other pieces that need upgrades, but a quarterback can make up for a lot of the problems. There are plenty of kids that would love to be viewed as the savior in that sense. And I agree with you. I'm not a high major prospect in college football, but I would have to think that there are some guys that would appeal to come in and be. I mean, can you imagine if CADE McNamara announced tomorrow that he's transferring to Iowa? Can you imagine Iowa fans? There are going to be some people that would say, it doesn't make a difference. We need to get linemen. We suck. Brian Ferentz. He would be a guy that would be held in high regard, much higher regard than he was ever held at Michigan. I'll tell you that, especially given the fact that, I mean, people were, even when CADE McNamara was winning at Michigan, people were calling for JJ to start. Understandably so, he's a 5-star recruit. Iowa didn't have any 5-star recruits coming in. Bellator de Veritas. If Iowa had McNamara this season, they'd be 10-2 at the least and going to the Big Ten championship game. Brandon, you'll have to Google the schedule. I don't have the schedule in front of me. They play some of those teams, I think. They don't play Rutgers, Maryland, Indiana. But again, I don't know. LH brings up Jake Rudock. Yeah, there's the exchange. Tim thinks he'd be perfect for Iowa. Erica, one of our premium subscribers, Alex hasn't had the practice to be a good QB. Lachey said he hadn't been practicing with the first team before the Nebraska game. Yeah, equal snaps against equal competition has never appeared to be the case with those guys. So when we were told last winter that this would be an open competition, that simply does not appear to have taken place. Mike, Iowa needed a QB last year. Now there's more issues than just QB. Well, Mike, there were more issues than QB last year as well. The offensive line was bad last year. Wide receiver play was not good. Part of that is, I think, Iowa's ability or inability to evaluate, because certainly Charlie Jones went to Purdue and proved that he was a more than capable receiver at the Big Ten level. But yes, you're right. There are more problems than simply quarterback. Brian, good to see you here, Brian. Long shot Hawk. If CADE committed to Iowa this week, could he come and go through bowl practice to get a head start? So I had this question earlier. I believe it was from Courtney. And her question is, does the portal window open on December 5th? So I believe the answer to that question is yes. I'd like to, again, according, I wanted to look this up because I saw the question and I thought I understood this correctly. and I'm reading this on Football Scoop because I saw that there was a portal prospect that was visiting, I believe it was a portal prospect from Wisconsin, Marcus Allen, that has committed apparently to Minnesota. So how that can happen, given the fact that I think Marcus Allen entered the portal during the season. I don't really understand how that can happen. So any players entering the portal on any of the non-window days of the year would need a waiver to become eligible for the following season. So again, I don't, without doing some research on this, I think Mark Rogers would be a better resource on this topic. But regardless, Courtney, the portal, whether it officially opens on the 5th, guys are entering the portal now. So whether they can officially be contacted, I don't know why a guy would enter the portal now if he's not able to be contacted. Perhaps it's more so along the lines of a guy can't visit another school. He's not going to be eligible for the bowl game, if that's the question. He's not going to be eligible for the bowl game. I don't believe he'd be able to practice. I don't believe he'd be able to practice. And I appreciate Chase just sent me a direct message screenshot of Gary. Is it Gary McNamara? Is it CADE's? So apparently CADE, I'm assuming Gary is CADE's dad. Thank you for sending that to me, Chase. Gary is CADE's dad, apparently, who's now following Iowa football. So, again, we can read into this stuff all day. Whether that means anything, I'm assuming Gary is CADE's father. So I would assume that. Appreciate this comment from Tony. He says, I guess for me, one would think with the Utah thing being the last 2 years that team would be in a mid-major once USC, UCLA join the Big Ten. If you are not here or the SEC, I think you will be in a mid-major. So apparently the chat has kind of transitioned to conference realignment a bit. That's okay. So yes, and the answer to long shot Hawk, he would not be, I don't believe there's any reason to believe he'd be able to be here right away. He wouldn't be able to enroll until spring at the minimum, I'm assuming, January 1st. LH says, so what happens if guys of both Petrus and Padilla say screw it and transfer? Well, Petrus may just graduate, and Alex Padilla may just graduate. I think that's more likely. I'm just guessing. I have not talked to either one of them or their families, but I would be surprised if either of them come back. I'd kind of be surprised if either of them transfer, but maybe they do. I mean, they each have years. I think Padilla technically has 2 years left if he wants them. But again, we'll have to wait and see. Hair trigger. Proctor still ends up coming to Iowa. That should help. I bet he's probably better right now than Jack Plum or DeYoung. And let's just say this, folks. I think that's a fair point from Hair Trigger. I'm maybe grasping at straws. But if you're Caden Proctor, perhaps I'm not saying this because I'm not talking to anybody in Caden's camp here for a few weeks, but I would think grabbing a portal quarterback, if you're Iowa, before signing day in December might be something that would encourage Proctor to stay here. Maybe, everybody wants to think it's all about money. You can believe that if you want, but if there's any of this Proctor's kind of back and forth feeling on the situation with Iowa and Oregon or wherever else he's looking, perhaps part of that is due to the offense, right? And certainly if you tell Caden Proctor, hey, Caden, we're going to pursue a guy named Cade. So we've got Caden coming in here, and he's going to play quarterback, and you're going to block for him. Perhaps that inspires you. All right.
Penis.
All right. You're an idiot. Yeah, little kid. See, Monday the 28th. Okay, are you on Thanksgiving break? I figured that's what it was. You got your 2 seconds of fame, young man. And now you're run to your mom for a timeout. BC says, I honestly think best case for any Iowa coaching change is they get a dedicated QB coach. Everything else likely to remain the same. Well, they need a dedicated QB coach regardless. You're absolutely right. And they needed that last year. And yes, Jay Baxter, there's the narrative. Who would want to go to Iowa? I understand. We gave reasons earlier about why somebody may may consider going to Iowa. JB, Cade's numbers aren't amazing, but better than what we currently have. 1,000% better than what anything Iowa has. Ricky, playmakers. We need playmakers on the outside and a quarterback, of course. Cade would be huge, 110%. Clint, Kirk Ferentz had bad problems off the field in 2020. He's old school, so I bet he hates NIL in the portal. At 67, the main reason he keeps coming back, in my opinion, is he gets to go to work with his son every day. He's also got, how many millions of dollars waiting for him if he fulfills his contract? That's probably some incentive as well, Clint. You think when you get to that point where you're making that much money, not that I know from experience, but you would think that you just have enough money to where, he didn't have to worry about money, but he'd probably like to make some money for his kids, for his grandkids, to be able to pass on. 1,000%. But working with your son is probably an extra initiative. But here's what I'll say too, Clint. I don't believe if Brian steps down that means Kirk's going to retire all of a sudden. I don't think that's the order of operations here with the situation. Thomas says, yep, players need to do their job. Coaches can only do so much. That's true. That's true. But when you've got players across the offense in different positions that are not being developed, who does that fall on, right? Falls on recruiting, falls on development, and that falls on coaches. And ultimately, it falls on the offensive coordinator and the head coach. But the question was asked earlier about Kelton Copeland, for instance, as Iowa's wide receiver coach. Certainly, he's a guy you look at because they've struggled at receiver. Jay Baxter says Iowa really needs to utilize the portal after they make changes to the coaching staff. Whether those changes are formally made now or not, Jay, we don't know what the conversations behind the scenes are like. If they were to reach out to CADE McNamara, does not necessarily mean that they're saying we're keeping Brian on the staff. It may be a situation where you say, look, this is our plan. It's not going to be released to the public yet. We don't know. Iowa still has not finished its season. They still got a bowl game to prep for. So, but they're not going to make any changes with Brian until at least after that bowl game. I'd be shocked if they go into the bowl game without Brian as their offensive coordinator. Kayvon says, Courtney says Kayvon accepted his Senior Bowl invite. I did see he tweeted it out, a week ago that it was his last game in Kinnick. I think my understanding is that you can accept your Senior Bowl invite and then pull out, Courtney. That's what Riley Moss did last year. So he could have a change of heart. I don't think he's sold on the. I mean, it's not impossible for him to return even if he has accepted his invite. Ed O'Neill says he just underwent major surgery on his knee. He may not be rehabilitated enough to play quarterback in 2023. All right. Let's move on to Erica here. Promote Phil Parker, bring Jim Leonard or Epi Epinesa in as DC. That's an out-of-the-box thought. Space Boy. Get rid of this. There we go. Space Boy, thank you for going live about this. I agree that where there's smoke, there's fire. I just hope that smoke isn't from our offense burning down in flames. Steve wants to know, do we have any Iowa player portal predictions? Bruce and Johnson. I don't have a good feel for that now. I'll say this. I would be surprised if we see Keegan back next year. But again, that is not based on any source, any information that I have inside the program. I want to make sure I preface everything I say based on, is it something that I've been told on good authority? Is it not? I've heard nothing on good authority that would to say that Keegan Johnson's gone. But those rumors have been out there. Arlen Bruce wouldn't be shocked to see him leave, but also don't necessarily think he will. That's just a wait and see situation. But certainly Iowa's struggles on offense this is stating the obvious, do not help the cause with any of these guys. Ricky wants to bring the Hokey Pokey back. Be fine with that. It means CADE McNamara is coming to Iowa. Joby says CADE McNamara is a good QB and fit for Iowa's system, as an accurate passer, can handle pressure, solid mobility. Iowa should definitely pursue him as a winning quarterback in the Big Ten. One Scoop John, who's a Michigan fan, says CADE would be a great fit at Iowa along with a new OC. So yes, the news, if you're new to this, Michigan quarterback CADE McNamara has entered the transfer portal. And yes, this is not news that I have any inside information that Iowa has definitely contacted CADE, but the news is out there. And however you want to digest this information. I think I agree with our users in here. Where there's smoke, there's fire. If you missed it earlier, Bruce Feldman did tweet this out earlier following CADE's entry into the portal. Iowa's a school to keep an eye on for former Michigan starting quarterback CADE McNamara. Will be interesting to see his next move. And Bruce Feldman is not a guy who likes to just throw mud at the wall. Maybe he's just speculating. Maybe he's not. Perhaps he has reason to believe that Iowa will show interest. Does not mean, he's not saying here, I would be surprised if he does not attend Iowa next year. But I would not be surprised if Bruce has reason to believe that Iowa is in contact with CADE McNamara. Would not surprise me in the least. I'll stay on here for 15, 20 minutes longer. But certainly the show is better when normal people call in. So as a reminder, if you want to join the show, you can do so by hitting the link in the description below. I'll throw it up in the live chat again. If you want to hop on and give your take on CADE McNamara and the transfer portal in general, because again, it's not just CADE, it's Brett Gabbert, it's the kid from Georgia Tech, it's the kid from Tulsa. There are options out there. There will be more options on the way. Courtney, appreciate you. I'm assuming you're quoting this from something incredible. She says the first window opens the day after the championship teams are selected, which will be December 5th, closes 45 days later, 15-day spring period. Yeah, but what does the window mean? I guess that's what I've done research on this in the past, but can't say for certain. All right. Destiny Pirate wants to know, realistically, are the Hawkeyes a draw given the present offensive design? I mean, yeah, it's what does a guy prioritize? Does he prioritize fit or does he prioritize winning? Iowa, if he comes to Iowa next year, I think even with I hate to say this, even with Brian Ferentz there, you get a pretty significant boost because he's a guy who's been coached at Michigan. Let's not forget his head coach at Michigan is Jim Harbaugh, former quarterback, pretty darn good quarterback for Michigan back in the day. So my point is, look, you have a QB's coach in Brian Ferentz who doesn't understand the position, but you have a guy who's seasoned and understands the position. Yes, the offense has problems, but overall, it's still an upgrade. And that does not mean that I don't think Iowa should make a change at OC. That's not what I'm implying at all. But certainly it's something to consider either way. Senator Merrick says, do you think Laporta leaves for the NFL? Yes, I do. I don't know that he said anything official, but remember, it was news last year when he came back. I don't know what else he had. What else does Sam Laporta have to prove here? I don't think there's anything left for CADE McNamara or for Sam Laporta to prove. Chris, yes. Take CADE. You need a couple of online transfers. I think they're gonna make moves. Remember, Iowa got one guy out of the portal last season, folks, and it was Steven Stylianos, who barely played this year at tight end. He's got another year with Laporta leaving. He'll be a guy that I'm assuming will play next year, but certainly you could use guys at other positions. Offensive line being an example. They did go after an offensive lineman or two last year. They pursued a running back briefly, which kind of was an interesting decision. I think they're fine at running back. We'll see what guys enter the portal. Guys could enter the portal, probably will enter the portal. That's just the nature of the portal nowadays. Iowa did a tremendous job last cycle at retaining players. I mean, a tremendous job. They lost a couple wide receivers who weren't playing. They did lose Charlie Jones. That was obviously the big hit. Tyrone Tracy left. But in general, Iowa did a good job retaining players, and they've traditionally done a good job retaining players. I find it hard to believe that can continue long term, given the status of college football and where things are at. Let's get Kyle added onto the mix. Kyle, welcome back to the show, sir.
How's it going, Corey?
I'm doing good. I made a comment earlier to Chase. This is going to sound like I'm ripping on Iowa football, but Kyle, I have more fun talking about this. Like, this is more exciting to me than actual football was this fall. That's the truth.
I know.
It's more exciting to me than all that.
I think I had less fun watching the games this year than any year in my entire life. And I've watched, I would say, probably 90% of the games since about 2012 2012 or 2010, and I never had less fun watching games than I did this year.
So does this excite you as much as it excites me? Just to be able to even if it's just if we find out that there's no connection and CADE McNamara's maybe tomorrow he commits to, I don't know, Cal. I mean, is that gonna? I mean, to me, just being able to talk about it and have this as an idea and know there is potential for hope on offense, potential for hope at quarterback. To me, that's exciting in and of itself.
Yeah, well, I think there's two things. Like sorry, my mind's going blank on the name of the reporter that first came out with this. What's his name?
Well, Bruce Feldman's the one who tweeted
Feldman.
out about potentially Iowa being a fit.
I mean, I think like I've seen people on Instagram and Twitter that are saying like it's just nonsense and he's throwing stuff up. I mean, people don't get to where he is by throwing stuff at the wall. I mean, your odds of success if you just pull something out of your rear end and throw it on Twitter is not very high. So he's not going to get where he is just by guessing. So I think there is some credibility to it. I mean, the most exciting part to me is the thought that they're at least willing to do something, because I think at the end of the day, like, we'd be much happier as fans if they go out and they, reach out to 10 different people. And if they miss on all of them, then, that's not as bad as not even trying. I mean, when they didn't even try last year, except for, I think, did they reach out to Thompson, who ended up going to Nebraska? I think I heard.
They reached out to Adrian Martinez, who left from Nebraska.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they left. They reached out to Adrian Martinez, and I mean, we didn't hear about anything else. But the thought that they're at least willing to do that, especially at quarterback, where like Kirk has been he's doubled down again and again and again on we develop our guys in house.
I just want to know this, Kyle. Let me ask you. First of all, where are you at right now? Are you in like some big dome, or are you?
Yeah, so I play college golf. So we're in. I'm in the turf room. We have like a little facility where we hit balls in the winter and stuff. So it's very open.
All right.
Is the audio a little weird?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Marshalltown. We had the Roundhouse in Marshalltown. I don't know if you're familiar with the Roundhouse, but kind of reminded me of where you're at. I don't understand. Can you give me an idea of where? I know you're not like this necessarily, and I have no problem with the comments, but I mean, just comment after comment after comment from people. What does Iowa have to offer him? Why would he come here? Why is that the first response when a guy enters the port? Why is that automatically? We just shut it down. We don't even care, because why would he ever want to come here? Is that just way of trying to? Is that a coping mechanism to not get your hopes up when you're disappointed? Is that what that is?
I think so, because I mean, even forgetting the situation on offense. I mean, to me, like I don't know how you feel, but like when I walk into Kinnick Stadium, that place on its own, and the environment that we have at Kinnick Stadium, to me, that is like, it's just a special place. Like it's not like, I know Michigan, Ohio State, they have stadiums that are, that are legendary, but like beyond the like top of the top, I think Kinnick Stadium is as good of an environment as there is in college football. And I think, even like for the number of people that we seat, like we get the most out of those fans, especially now with the north end zone being the way it is. Like I don't understand. I mean, I think it's a combination. I think you're right. It is a coping mechanism. I think it's it also does a disservice, I think, because when we say, Iowa has nothing to offer, why would we even reach out, yada yada yada, I think it lets Kirk off the hook to a degree too, because if we're saying constantly like, hey, why don't we reach out to this guy and this guy and this guy, and they keep not doing it, then it starts to look more and more like he's, old school, old fashioned.
And Kyle, did you follow me? Did you follow this channel last at this time?
Not at this time, but definitely beginning of the summertime.
Okay, so you were not a part, because I got ripped by some people because I literally said they need to reach out to this guy. I said they need to reach out to Bo Nix. I don't care if he's already sold somewhere. You reach out to him. You swallow your pride and you reach out to Keaton Slovis. You reach out to all these guys who were upgrades. Every single one of them.
Every single one of them.
And so I've never been afraid to say that. And as I share these things on Twitter, because you follow me on Twitter, I get every time you share something like that, why are you even sharing this? Well, first of all, I can share what the heck I want to share. But second of all, they're all upgrades. And I would rather Iowa go after a guy like Brett Gabbert than nobody. Would I rather Brett Gabbert or CADE McNamara? I'd rather CADE McNamara. Yeah. But I would also rather Brett Gabbert than what Iowa currently has, or at least has. I mean, I've had people say, well, they need to just play Joey Levis. Based on what? What has Joey Labus proven to anybody?
Nothing.
I mean, he's
Reality-
maybe he's great. Maybe Kirk and Brian are completely inept as it relates to evaluating Joey Labus, but they've not given him any flying endorsement, and he's not proven anything in practice. In the little bit of footage we've seen in practice has not made Joey Labus look great. There goes Kyle. So I don't know. I people who say that Joey Labus is the future, maybe he is, but there is no reason based on what we've seen at Iowa, because we haven't seen anything at Iowa, to believe that. All right. Just so you're aware, I'm not going to add you into the show unless you have your real name on here. So we're going to go to John, and then we'll go back to Kyle. John, how's it going,
Hey,
sir?
Corey.
How are you?
Good to be here with the legendary Corey Bratta, and obviously we're actually big. So the knuckleheads at Voice of College Football, we're all big fans. Love what you do.
Well, I appreciate you.
And usually I wouldn't call in because my Iowa knowledge is real limited. But I figured this was a good way to get involved. I've been a longtime Michigan fan. Those people on chat might know me, One Scoop John. I'm in there all the time. And I think CADE McNamara would be I've been saying it for a year, that Iowa would be a great choice. And people were saying, well, no, because we got Petrus, we got Padilla. I heard that early on, that it was like, oh no, we don't have room.
And John, here's the thing. People have told me, why do you really want to bring in a transfer portal guy? Because that might mean that you have guys that leave. Like, what message is that going to be sending to the guys on your roster? The guys on your roster are the reason you need to go after other guys, because your quarterback room is subpar. That's the whole point. If they leave, like if Alex Padilla has any inkling to want to come back next year and he leaves because they bring in CADE McNamara, have a good day. I mean, you can't stop. I mean, if he's afraid of competition,
then
he should leave. Like, you don't not transfer, you don't not recruit guys because you're afraid that your other guys are going to jump ship. Anyways, that's a bugaboo of mine. It's a pet peeve of mine when I hear that from people.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing. CADE is not going to go to a program where you have to throw 80 times a game. Okay, his style of offense that he thrives in is 2021, where he's asked to be a game manager. He's asked to manage the run game, throw to the tight ends. So if you have a good tight end and you have a decent O-line and you can get a running game together, CADE can make some throws. There were two in particular, one against Penn State last year and one against Nebraska, to Eric All, where they lose those games if that throw doesn't happen. So not only is he a good game manager, but occasionally he might actually be able to get you a win against a close, like when you're close against an opponent. So I think he would be an upgrade.
What doesn't make any sense to me, John, is I respect people's views on here. They can have whatever view they want, but I agree with everything you just said. Like the people who are saying, he's not much of an upgrade. Have you watched Iowa's quarterback room? Like, have you actually? I know you have. I know you watch a ton of Iowa, but have you sat down and watched Iowa's offense? I mean, no, I'm serious. Like, there is not a guy, when you're ranking dead last in the conference in most passing categories, that means that just about everybody else in the conference, if they enter the portal, I would say he should be someone you look at. Now, maybe he ends up not being a fit. There are other factors at play when you're looking at numbers, but typically the numbers across the board don't lie. And CADE McNamara, without even giving attention to the eye test, was 1,000% an upgrade from anything Iowa has. Now, would he be able to produce at that level at Iowa? Probably not, because he doesn't have the skill position talent that Michigan has. He doesn't have the offensive line that Michigan has. He's not going to have the run game that Michigan has. But there's such a big gap when you look at the numbers. I don't want anybody can convince me that gap's just going to all of a sudden disintegrate, because that would imply that if Spencer Petrus went to Michigan, he'd be able to do what CADE McNamara did last year. Does anybody believe that to be the case? You've watched Spencer Petrus. I mean,
yeah, I have. Yeah. 1.1 QBR in a lot of the games, so that's
yeah. I just can't believe. What I can't believe is that we've still got Iowa fans who are still pushing that narrative. A year after the original discussion, at least for me, transpired about going after quarterbacks in the portal, there's still people who push back and say, well, the quarterback isn't a problem, or isn't this idea that we have to identify one singular problem. I've been saying this for months. That Iowa's offense doesn't get to be 130th in total offense in the country without having issues a lot of different places, and one fix is not going to fix everything. There's not one solution to a dozen problems. Yes, right. You have problems with play calling. Yes, you have problems with blocking. Yes, you have problems with schematics. All these things, they all need to be fixed. But one of the big things that need to be fixed is the most important position on a college football team, and as you know, that's the quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know where things are at with Brian Ferentz. I haven't heard anybody say there's been any movement there. But the one thing I do know is that Kirk isn't going to magically change overnight to a spread heavy, 80 times a game, throw the ball type of coach, right? And so as long as Iowa does have that identity of run first, tight ends, etc., CADE's a great choice because he can do that. And he can make, like I said, if you ask him to throw 20 times a game, that's about his speed, right? He's not going to be somebody who's going to, if you have no run game, no tight end, like nothing's happening, and you have to rely on him to Aaron Rodgers you to win, that's probably not going to happen. But if you're in a 22-21 ball game and you need a throw to get you to field goal range, he can do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we watched it all of last year. I mean,
yeah.
When you saw the first two games, and I thought it was a weird way to make a final decision, having Jim Harbaugh play both these guys against two teams that were terrible. I mean, Michigan, as you know, played one of the worst non-conference schedules known to man.
Oh, Cupcake Central, absolutely.
And so to have these guys play against different teams and try to evaluate, I think that was more of just a way to throw a bone at CADE McNamara because
he's a leader of men. He won one of the captain roles because the team loved him so much. And so if you need in that locker room, if you need a leader, if you need somebody who's going to rally the troops, then he's your guy for sure. And I think it would be a good fit.
And this comment here, appreciate the super chat from AV Nurse Patrick. These numbers are 1,000%, I think, an indication of what he gives you. Again, I want to make clear, nobody's arguing the skill position talent there isn't a gap there. The hope is that, John, with an addition like a CADE McNamara or whoever else you pursue in the portal at quarterback, and I do believe Iowa will pursue somebody. I think they'd be foolish not to pursue CADE. But the assumption here is, and from what I've been told, they are going to not only pursue a quarterback, but they want to pursue skill position guys, receivers. They're fine at tight end. Even with Sam Laporta gone, you got Luke Lachey, Addison Stringer came on strong. Stilianos hopefully will be ready to produce next year. They need receivers. They need quarterback as far as skill position guys. And then you build around those pieces. Offensive line is, maybe next year with being the third year of George Barnett, he produces a halfway decent offensive line. You've got good backs. So I don't think the idea that skill position talent around CADE is simply the reason why he was able to produce 64% through the year. That in and of itself is a major upgrade.
Yeah, and listen, he's accurate. He doesn't make mistakes with the football. I mean, 6 picks the whole year against some of the defenses we had to face last year. That's pretty good, right? And the touchdown amounts nothing to write home about. He's not, like I said, he's not going to be like an Ohio State or a 50 touchdown a season type quarterback, but I don't think you need him to be. I think you just need him to be competent.
Absolutely. That's exactly. And Kirk, that's the other thing. People who say, Pat, and I love Pat. Pat's always on here. And Pat says, I want a dual threat guy. Well, Pat, does Kirk want a dual threat guy? Based on his language, based on Brian's language, do they want a dual threat quarterback? They've got a couple guys who are mobile coming in. But James Reesar is 6'6". He's not really a dual threat. He's mobile, but he's still a pro style guy, as is Marco Lainez. I think Lainez has got more upside mobility-wise than anybody Iowa's had since maybe Brad Banks. But the point is, you may want that, Pat, and I may want that, Pat, but that doesn't mean that's what Kirk wants. And I've said the same thing, John.
Right.
somebody brought up Paul Chryst as a potential candidate for OC, and the first reaction from a lot of people is, "Oh, why would you want that? It's the same thing." Well, guess what? If we're stuck with running this run first offense, pro style offense, you're not going to, as you said, Kirk's not going to switch to a spread. He's not going to do that. So if that's what you have, if Kirk's going to keep things philosophically and going in the same direction, then you get the best candidate you can that can run things, operate the offense in those terms. And a guy like Paul Chryst, to me, would be an excellent choice if we're going under the umbrella of a pro-style run-first offense.
Sure, Paul Chryst would be a great choice for Iowa. I mean, yeah, if you want to imagine Iowa with a different head coach, somebody who's more. I mean, listen, Wisconsin just went to Fickell. It's not completely unprecedented, and Wisconsin had been Berry ball for how many decades, right? So it's not unprecedented. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible for Iowa to do that, but with Kirk seeming to be there forever, and Brian seeming to be there forever, I don't see Brian getting fired. It may be demoted, but I don't think he's getting fired. So what do? Well, you shore up the tight end room. You shore up the O-line. You bring in somebody like CADE McNamara. And I think he's going to be looked at by Wisconsin and Notre Dame, too, as like an interim until CJ Carr's ready to take over, for example. Wisconsin, because they need somebody better than who they have to run any semblance of what he did in Cincinnati to get to the playoffs. So he's going to be looked at by some of those schools.
I'll be surprised if Graham Mertz isn't in the portal very soon as well. Just given his struggles, and then given the fact you have a coaching change, would not be surprised at all to see him in the portal. And Jack brings up Purdue. You're going to be losing Aiden O'Connell. Who knows? I mean, would he fit there? I mean, that's a very pass first offense. I don't know that that's what, but that might be the kind of thing that CADE thinks he wants. I mean, that might be a situation where CADE. I mean, we've all seen situations. I mean, think of Jalen Hurts. Like, I know he's an extreme example, but I watched him at Oklahoma. I watched him at Alabama. Yeah. To me, he looked like a different quarterback in those two systems. And now I watched him last night on Sunday Night Football. The dude is insane. And personally, I just never saw that at Alabama. I just never did. I didn't watch every Alabama game that he ever played in. But sometimes a guy is a result of the system. That's true. So maybe he thinks he can go to a Purdue and be a pass-first guy. But I think he is more suited for a run-first offense where he can be a game manager if he wants any chance of maybe playing in the NFL someday. It's probably not going to be as a starter. It'd be as a backup somewhere.
Right. He's going to hold the clipboard.
Yeah, good. Look at a guy like C.J. Beathard, a guy like Ricky Stanzi. He didn't make it a real long time, but you can make a living in the NFL after being a quarterback in Iowa's offense. So
absolutely, and I could see that happening. It kind of like the inverse Rudock, right? Rudock came from, we got him from you guys. Jim Harbaugh coaches him up, and he does have a career, not a super long one, but he got himself a career in the NFL for a couple of years. So it's possible.
Absolutely. John, appreciate you calling in. You're welcome to call in anytime.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Corey.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's add Kyle back to the mix. Kyle?
Hey.
A few minutes ago.
I just I got kicked off there apparently with the StreamYard. I'm using StreamYard on my phone, so if you get a phone call, it kicks you off. So, all right. But we're on Do Not Disturb now, so we're all good.
All right. Appreciate you coming back.
Yeah. The other thing I want to float out to you, this is within the last hour. I wanted to read this to you because there was a rumor that has been floating around Instagram.
Oh, wow.
So I'm just going to read this to you.
Gotta love those.
I'm not going to. Oh, I know. We're not going to get into credibility just yet. But I just want to read this to you and see what you think. So it says, Iowa rumors. News has surfaced that there will be multiple staff changes for the Hawkeyes this offseason and could come as soon as within the week, per a source within the QB room. It appears that Iowa will be parting ways with offensive line coach George Barnett, offensive coordinator Brian Ferentz, as well as wide receiver coach Kelton Copeland. And it was also rumored that, Iowa would potentially target Marvin McNutt as a wide receiver position coach. Because he coaches, I believe, does he coach at Coe College right now?
Well, that I don't.
I think he's the wide receiver coach at Coe right now.
Okay. So okay, you said let's not get into credibility right now. Let's get into credibility.
Yeah, well, all it says is per a source within the quarterback room. That's what it says.
Who is this reporting it?
Let me see. I don't think it's a very big page. That's what makes me a little bit skeptical. Let me see. Yeah, no, it's not a very big page. It's a tiny Hawkeye page. Hawkeye rumors.
Listen, I will be surprised if all that happens. I will not be surprised if Brian moves on, but I'm surprised if they let Kelton Cullen go, even though I think that should be a consideration given the fact that room has not been very good and they've struggled to recruit. George Barnett, I would be disappointed to see that. I don't think he does 2 years. You give him 2 years of inheriting a mess. I don't agree with that at all. And I understand they have problems up front. I'll be surprised if that happens. And guess what? Rumors like that are going to happen. They're going to start popping up because that will create attention and will create clicks. So we'll have to wait and see. Sometimes there's smoke where there's fire, but I prefer I got Bruce Feldman and some random guy on Instagram.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and the thing that surprised me was George Barnett, as well as the could come as soon as this week. There's no way. I don't see Kirk ushering his own son out the back door before a bowl game. I just don't see that. But I don't know. I mean, the Marvin McNutt thing struck home as well because he was my favorite player growing up. But I don't know. I mean, he would have to have proven that he's done something at Co before he could take on a role at a Power 5 school.
Yeah, I don't love the idea of going out and just hiring former players because they're former players. Like Marvin McNutt's coached. I love Marvin McNutt, but he's coached at Co. I mean, that we're assuming he's going to come here and just get it done. Like I would prefer to go after. I'm just serious. I mean, would prefer to go after guys who have proven it at the D1 Power 5 level. I don't know why. And I like Abdul Hodge, but he's a perfect example. You're just bringing him in. He's coaching for an FCS school, and you're just bringing him in. He's never coached tight ends. They've been fine at tight end. We'll see long term how it works, but I don't know. It's just I think a bigger thing for me is it bugs me that Kirk has been able to get away with hiring family, former players, friends because he's Kirk Ferentz, and that's what he does, and he can get away with it. But like at some point, you have to hire based on. I think you have to hire based on what's the best for your program, and you're telling me there aren't better, more safer options than Marvin McNutt? That would be my only dispute to that.
Yeah, and he gets away with it a lot because he says, he'll push this narrative of, Iowa football is family and, the kind of culture that they have. And I guess it makes sense to a degree, but at the end of the day, like the most important thing in hiring is merit. Like you can't, people become family over time when they do a good job. That's just the reality of like, if you bring somebody on that you don't know, and they come on and they do a great job at Iowa for 10 years, they're going to become family. Like that's, you don't have to worry about that.
I want to make clear, Kyle, I'm not poo-pooing the Marvin McNutt idea. Maybe it would work, but I just think this late in Kirk's, I've said this before with just decisions he makes in general. I would respect Kirk exponentially more if he just said, you know what, the heck with all of this, how I've operated. We're going to do our best to retain Phil Parker, but we're also going to get a guy who just knows how to create an offense, even if it goes against philosophies that I've had instilled in myself for the last 40 years. We're going to go get the best wide receiver coach we can get. We're going to, hit the transfer portal hard as we need to. Like that would make me say, look, this guy's he's going out of his comfort zone because he loves Iowa. And yes, he's been here for 20 some years and he wants to show that he's still in this thing to win big. And I think some of the moves he's made, including promoting Brian, indicate to me that he's content with where this program is at. And that doesn't rub me the right way as a fan, but it does. Some fans are fine with that.
Yeah. Too, the other thing that I always think about, like, if you look back at, even Alabama, like Coach Saban, he had a very pro style offense through the mid 2000s. And I can't remember what year it was. Maybe after they got beat by Clemson one of the years in 2015, 2016. I can't remember exactly what year it was. But, he opened up his offense to Tua with a more spread style offense. And he transformed the program. I know people have, tried to kill Alabama for years and say, anytime they lose a championship game, then, the dynasty's over. But, he extended that dynasty, no doubt, by completely overhauling the offense. And I don't think, I mean, I think as bad as the offense was this year, we have a great, or I mean, not, I won't say great yet, but a very good running back room, I think. And I mean, retaining Caden Proctor is a big part of the future. But I mean, there's a specific way this offseason needs to go. But you get a couple of competent coaches, you get a transfer. Maybe it's not Cade, but you get a decent transfer quarterback. You retain Caden Proctor, and all of a sudden you've got a good running back room, at least one future star on offensive line. And you've got a transfer quarterback and a coach that knows what he's doing with them. And all of a sudden, you're not so helpless anymore. I mean, if Iowa has an offense that's 6th or 7th in the Big Ten, they could win the whole. I mean, not that it's likely, but they could win the conference with the 6th best offense.
You don't have to be like when you're elite offensively. You don't have to be elite, or excuse me, elite defensively. You don't have to be elite on offense. We've said this how many times? I think if you're top 100, that gives you a chance. Obviously, it's not good enough. I mean, you want to be top 75 at the minimum if you're going to be competing for Big Ten titles. But the fact that Iowa was able to get to I know the West is weak, but it wasn't as weak last year. The fact that you're able to get to the conference title game last year with the 123rd best offense in the country according to total offense. Yeah, you're right. Imagine what you could do with an offense that is top 80, top 75. And I don't know that Cade single-handedly does that, but you add a portal receiver or two, you add Cade McNamara, I think you're going to get a piece or two along that offensive line. And I do believe if Caden Proctor ends up coming to Iowa, which at this point I believe he will. That's my prediction at this point. He's going to play right away. So you're going to have a lot of different pieces up there, and maybe that gives Keegan Johnson pause as far as his potential of leaving. Maybe if he sees, hey, we got Cade McNamara coming in, Caden Proctor's locked into his commitment, and he knows we're getting other guys, because I don't think bringing in a portal guys at wide receiver necessarily drives Keegan Johnson off, because at some point they'll spread the ball around, and Keegan Johnson is not your man beater that some people think he is. So you need to be able to spread the ball around and actually deflect attention away from Keegan at times. So yeah, I just think the portal is a 1,000% must just in this day and age of football, but especially given Iowa's struggles with personnel. Yeah.
And do we have any indication on their position, if it's going to change on like NIL and such? Like, what do you have any information as far as that goes on what they might be willing to do to get, because the transfer portal ends up becoming a bidding war nowadays in a lot of cases, not all cases, but a lot of cases.
All I can tell you is what I know about the two initiatives that are in place, right? The collective and the other. They've got two collectives, right? I mean, there's other people who are better authorities on Iowa's NIL situation than me, but there is nothing stopping a donor from basically telling a kid, hey, I know Iowa's going after you. I'll drop 6 figures for you. If that means coming. There's nothing stopping that. I mean, the power is to the players.
There's nothing. So,
regardless of what Iowa says on the outside, those things could occur. I don't know if they are occurring, like if that's something that has been thrown out there, but there's not regulation on this stuff. So it's better. I will say this: Iowa's in a better position now than they were a year ago, because they have these collectives in place where they didn't have that in place last year.
Yeah. And I think there's certainly for next year, in my opinion, I would be showing some urgency if I were a coach, because there's pressure on the program. But the other thing too is, we've got a lot of realignment coming soon. We've got really good crossover games next year. We've got, I believe the 3 crossovers are at Penn State, home against Michigan State, and home against Rutgers. Michigan State, maybe they'll turn it around, but they didn't look like a world beater this year. At Penn State's a tough game, but it's not at Ohio State. And then the West, the coaching changes for Nebraska and Wisconsin. I personally think, I don't know what you thought of both hires, but I think both of those are going to be really good hires.
Absolutely.
In the future. I think both of them have at least 1 or 2 10-win seasons in the next 5 years just because of those coaches.
I think both those programs have a chance to turn it around quickly. Rule has proven he's willing to go after guys in the portal. Fickle, he's got good personnel there. Wisconsin's a year removed from a 9-win season. So those teams have a chance to win. That's what I'm saying. These are not these massive rebuilding projects for either of
No.
those coaches.
No.
And as I said before, you've got one more year of division. So in 2 years, you could potentially have a strong Nebraska, a strong Wisconsin, a strong Illinois, and then, a Penn State in your division, USC, UCLA. Things are going to look totally different in 2 years. So the onus is on Iowa. If Kirk Ferentz is going to stick this out through the change, and at some point, you hope he doesn't make a change. You hope he doesn't decide to step down, or I don't think he's going to retire in the next year or two. You hope he doesn't, because it would be a very strange time for Iowa to try to regroup right before all those changes are made across college football. Nebraska and Wisconsin making those changes also could be an indication. I mean, Frost was obviously a disaster, but Wisconsin making the change when they did, I think, might be also an indication of where college football is with realignment going on.
Yeah, and I think, just in general, he's got a fan base right now that's, I would say, fairly frustrated. If none of these moves come to fruition, I think that'll come to a boil more. But he's, this upcoming year with a division that is still winnable without the realignment and without some of those. I think Nebraska will be better next year. I don't think they go from a 4-win team to a 10-win team. So you'll have maybe slightly better rivalry games with Wisconsin and Nebraska, but I don't think those. I don't know. Do you think those two coaches will be able to come in and instantly produce 10, 11-win teams?
Fickle
or Nebraska? I think Fickle could. I don't think Nebraska. I don't think Rule will at Nebraska.
It depends on what happens with the portal with Nebraska, because that roster there is not the worst. They're by far not the worst roster in the Big Ten. So they've already got talent. The transfer portal just speeds everything up. I do think that Fickle, I'm not saying he will win 10 games next year. I have to look at their schedule. I would not be shocked to see them win 9 or 10 games next year. I would not be shocked to see, at the minimum, Nebraska being bowl eligible. Heck, they just beat Iowa. And they
will. Yeah, they will. They will be bowl eligible. I have no doubt about that. I think they'll get 7 or 8 games. But you don't have an Ohio State or a Michigan in your division, or a USC yet. This is a chance for him to buy some time in terms of fan frustration. Like, if he goes out next year and wins 10 games in the division, like if he struggles the first couple of years after realignment, then he's bought himself some time. I think if he goes out next year and doesn't make, the changes that we want to see made, and wins 7 games again next year, doesn't make it to the conference championship, and then struggles when the realignment happens, then I think he's in a more precarious position, as legendary as he is.
Yeah, I agree with all that.
Yeah. It's all interesting. I thought it was funny what you said at the start. It's more interesting, this whole conversation, than any of our post-game conversations have been for a while.
Man, I really do believe, and I'm going to publish some content here in the coming days. May not make people very happy, but I've never, Kyle, I've been an Iowa fan my whole life. I've never been apathetic during a season.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where I was apathetic in the last month of the season. And it's not to say that in my heart of hearts you don't want Iowa still to win, because it's not actively rooting against Iowa. But at some point, and I'm not the only one who felt this way, you just don't care. Because as much as, and I hate to say that, even because Iowa's, obviously the players are putting in hours of work every day. You think about what Phil Parker and the defensive staff has done. But you see this ceiling on the program that has been created as a result of nepotism and as a result of what we want to call stability. And has Kirk Ferentz, he deserves credit for the positives that are a result of stability. But I got to a point where it's just kind of like, we're just waiting to see that if there's changes made after the year. And I'll say this, even though fans were upset after the Nebraska loss, that may have been the best thing that could have ever happened, Kyle. I really believe that. I think that loss Saturday, in the long run, could end up being the best thing that's happened to Iowa since, at least, I don't want to say the best thing that's happened to Iowa in years, because they just won the West last year, and that was great. But the fact that they didn't go to the Big Ten championship game, and potentially does that encourage Kirk to not make the changes that I think a lot of people want. That would have been a real possibility. So we'll see if that plays out. I could be wrong on that, but I would not be shocked.
Yeah, I mean it's tough to imagine a world where he doesn't do anything. I mean you're right. The Nebraska game I think was a turning point because I mean as much as it was maybe a game in the fourth quarter, I mean that first 3 quarters, 2.5 quarters was embarrassing. I mean it wasn't just a loss. Like watching the entire game from start to finish, and I think like Twitter and Instagram, it was like everybody was laughing at us, and I think after everybody laughed at us at the start of the season, it kind of faded as we won the 4 games in a row, and they win that 5th game in a row, and maybe they stave it off.
And Kyle, let me tell you something else. Had they lost to Minnesota and then beaten Nebraska and not made the title game, I may not be saying this because the narrative would still be, well, we finished on a high note. We won that last game of the season. Our one loss was on the road at a good Minnesota team. We still won 4 or 5. But no, the fact that Iowa blew the West at home against 3-8 Nebraska, that might be the incentive needed, or the pressure, if you want to call it that, needed to actually create some change there.
Yeah, and that combination too with all of the other teams that are making changes, I think that's also a really good thing in terms of the environment, because the environment around us in the West is change. I mean, Brett Bielema has made change at Illinois. Wisconsin will be different. Nebraska will be different. Those programs are all changing and kind of evolving, and I think it sticks out even more if we don't do anything.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Kyle.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting.
All right, sir. Well, appreciate you being a part of this as well, as always, and we'll hopefully be talking again about some positive, actual, well-founded rumors that are maybe have some substance behind them.
Some news instead of some rumors.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, appreciate you, sir. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, folks. Appreciate everybody being here. J.R. Anderson. Brian has to go. Barta has to forfeit it, and if Kirk says he'll leave, if he's fired, then Kirk has to go too. Kirk's got to do what's best for the program. That's all I'll say. So I hope that the move is made. I'm not saying he's going to fire his son, but something has to change there. We've been saying that for a long time. Comment here, why so he could hand the ball 45 times to the running back? When's the last time Iowa's run the ball 45 times? When has that ever happened? Pat, loss to 3-8 Nebraska should be huge incentive and where we're ranked offensively. Just saying, in the long run, could end up being the best thing that ever happened to Iowa. Ari Gold wants to know if Iowa will throw the ball past 12 yards in the bowl game. Be interesting to see who's quarterback in the bowl game. I think it'll be Petrus, but I'm just kind of intrigued by that. No reason to think it won't be Petrus. Hobby 4, our quarterback needs settles type eligibility because of the complexity. Assuming there's some snarky tone in that. Clayton, if we were to contact CADE, who do you think on the coaching staff would do it? Well, I'll tell you who should do it, Clayton. His name is Kirk Ferentz. That's who should do it. He should be the head man. It ain't Brian. There's nobody else that you would really say should. I mean, who it should be either Brian or Kirk, right? Brian's supposed to be the quarterback's coach. I guess Budmeyer. I don't even know if Budmeyer can legally do that or within the rules actually do that, but it should be Kirk Ferentz in my opinion. David wants to know when the early signing day is. I believe that's December 21st. Yes, December 21st. Got that in my notes here. December 21st is the early signing period, so we'll get a decision. We'll know about Iowa's class. Can they retain everybody in the class, including Caden Proctor? We'll know by then. Casey wants to know, does Reganey have a COVID year if he came back? I don't believe so. Let me look this up. Maybe he does. I guess I've never really entertained that. Let me look this up here. I thought he was here in 18. He redshirted in 18. So I guess, yeah, he would. I didn't even think about that. Yes, he would have a COVID year. I hadn't ever thought of that. Brian wants to know, did I see Pat Hardy's what? Pat Hardy's a beat. I don't follow him on Twitter. Did I see his what? You're going to have to explain that to me, Brian. Jonathan, what's to stop half a team going to the portal? What's to stop half a team going to the portal? Nothing. I don't know what half a team means, if you explain that, but there's nothing stopping teams from going to the portal. Most teams are doing it. Iowa has been hesitant. Steven, would getting Cade in the portal buy Brian another year with the fans? Woo. That's an interesting question. Is there an argument that could be made that Iowa may go to the portal hard just to quiet the fans and give Brian another year? That's a great question. Hadn't really thought about that too deeply. But there are going to be some people who it won't. There's some people who might give him another year because they're convinced that quarterback is the problem. I'm not convinced that it is the problem. Like I said, there's problems all over the place. I will not be satisfied if Iowa simply adds a quarterback, adds some wide receivers, adds a couple of linemen, and keeps Brian there, because they need a change. They need a change at offensive coordinator, and they need changes personnel-wise. But who knows, Stephen? Good question. Rick says, when and if Kirk Ferentz retires in a year or two, who would be a good coach to go after? I produced some content on that, more content on the way, certainly. Mark Stoops is a name, obviously, that people toss around. Bob Stoops, would he be interested? Maybe, maybe not. Certainly, he'd be high on my list. I think Phil Parker deserves a shot if he wants it. But great question, Rick, and we'll have those conversations during the offseason. 1977, Punks Unite. What is your prediction for transfer portal additions? I think Iowa should do 1 quarterback, 2 O-linemen, 2 receivers, 1 DB. Wouldn't argue with that. And I think you're probably onto something. That is 6 guys. That's not that many. I mean, you see, there's some programs that do a lot more every cycle. But I would say that that is a reasonable expectation, and fans would be happy with some serious portal additions, because they had 1 guy last year and as a tight end that didn't play this year much. David says, Pat Hardy's article from Hawk Fanatic today, his solution to the offense. I've not read that. I don't read a whole lot of extra content out there, I'll admit, David. Just don't have time, but I'll try to give that a read here since you recommended it. Let's see here. Rick says, how bad was DeJean's injury? I think it was a concussion, right? Am I wrong on that? I think it was a concussion, so we'll see on his status for the bowl game. Ari Gold, you didn't answer my question, past 12 yards or no. I'll say yeah. I'll say they throw past 12 yards a time or two, but man, the refusal to throw down the field, especially with Spencer Peterson. I understand pass protection hasn't always been the best, but that's his best quality as a quarterback is his deep shot. The fact that they didn't do that much is ridiculous. Christopher wants to know, did Iowa recruit CADE originally? The answer to that question is no, at least according to 247 Sports. Did not see them listed. So I don't believe there's a relationship there per original recruiting, but we don't know if Iowa's been in contact even through the grapevine, whether you think that's ethically right or not. We don't know if Iowa has done that. Pat O'Neill, thanks for coming on today. Thank you, Pat. I enjoyed this and didn't know how many people would be a part of this live stream. We got 250 people on now, so I do appreciate that. Courtney says, I heard from one of the other Iowa guys that Nico might come back. Again, didn't even realize it. I guess I didn't think about it, that he's got another year. It wouldn't probably be a terrible thing. I mean, Nico's been solid, and they need help at wide receiver. So if I'm Iowa, you're probably asking Nico if there's any way you could get him to come back. Question here, very difficult to find on multiple internet searches, but wonder how much the university lost by letting a freshman take over for DeJean. FYI, Harbaugh made $500,000 last year for playing the Hawks. Well, let's not forget that. What were they supposed to do? TJ Hall's played great in practice. They were down Jamari Harris. They were down Terry Roberts. What else were they supposed to do but play a freshman? Now, you could have certainly found a way to flank a safety and kind of double team, if you will, Trey Palmer. Certainly, you could have had Riley Moss just basically following Palmer all over the field. That's not typically something Phil Parker does. But, yeah, TJ Hall had a rough couple of plays there and got replaced. So, again, we'll just have to wait and see the future there at cornerback. But I think the future is bright. For the record, TJ Hall, he's been really good prospect that they added. I think in part due to Don Patterson and TJ's relationship, his dad's relationship with Don. All right. Doug, I would think CADE would be an early favorite to land in Iowa, but a lot is going to depend upon teams involved and the type of offense they run. Let's see here. And the comments continue to flood in, so appreciate everybody being here. CADE has entered the portal as a grad transfer. Portal windows don't apply to him. Thank you, Real Hayden. I knew that because I believe the same thing happened with Charlie Jones. So thank you for bringing that up, Hayden. That's an excellent point. Rich says the problems start with the AD. You're not the first person to say that. Rick says, you notice Iowa QBs never run for even a few yards. Padilla seems to throw it away. Well, I'd like to see Iowa actually run some QB draws. Wouldn't that be nice? Deadly Predator. I wish Cade the best of luck. I hope he gets a starting role somewhere. I think he will. If it's not Iowa, it'll be somewhere else. Thoughts on LeVar Woods as head coach, Kevin? I've said this before. I think LeVar would potentially make a good candidate down the road, but he's got to call plays somewhere first. He's got to prove himself as an offensive or a defensive coordinator. I mean, he's a former linebacker, so I'd like to see him call plays. Now, he did coach tight ends briefly at Iowa for a stint, but I would not be elevating him from special teams coach to head coach anytime soon. Let's see. Yes, O-line is a problem. QB is a problem. Lack of wide receivers. They all have in common. Yes, OC, quarterback. Can't argue with that. And yes, it would be great to have a creative OC. Yes, I think we're all on the same page on that fact, Pat. Let's see here. Brandon wants to know, is Proctor going to stay? At this point, I would tend to think yes, but we'll have to wait and see. Thank you for this. Blessed to have my Hawkeye insights. Well, I wouldn't say you're blessed, but I appreciate the kind words. Thank you for being here. Truman, thank you for becoming the newest premium member to the channel. You can hit the little join button next to From the Hawkeye of the Storm. Become a premium member, support the channel. You get a few perks along the way. Thank you, Truman, for being a part of this show in that way. Ricky says, why wasn't Xavier an option instead of Hall? Xavier's a safety. So I understand you're saying that perhaps he could have played corner, but that's not something that Iowa would do. They had confidence in TJ Hall. You get burned a couple times. Trey Palmer has burned more guys than just TJ Hall. So, but I think Iowa wouldn't be surprised to see them going to the portal at cornerback, but it's not as big of a priority because you are going to get Jamari Harris back next year, which is obviously good news, and Cooper DeJean. James, I've only got a minute, but appreciate you hanging tight, sir.
Do you know the question? Do you know how many games did Terry play this year?
Terry Roberts?
Yeah. Because I was thinking of something like he could get if he only played 4, he could get a medical, maybe come back.
Yeah, it didn't sound. Last I heard from Kirk Ferentz in a recent press conference, I'd like to, if my memory serves me correctly, he did not sound optimistic about him coming back. He would have a COVID year if he wanted it. So I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't want to speculate, but
no, I just didn't know.
He does have a year left, I believe.
But one thing I was going to say about the quarterback issue, like I just got home, so I missed most of your thing. But one thing I'm going to say is, like, for me, like, Cade makes sense, yes. But I think he's going to have bigger fish. You know what I'm saying? Like Notre Dame. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're at Iowa and Notre Dame, obviously, as an Iowa fan, I would choose Iowa. But, like, and from their perspective, you know, which one might be more?
I agree. Yeah.
Which I'm not trying to hate, but I'm saying, like, I feel like there's other names out there you could go after too. Like, you brought it up, Brett Gabbert, the Wayne's brother, who I didn't think played bad. Like, that's kind of more, I feel like, them. That's kind of more Iowa. You know what I'm saying? Like him, Davis, Brin. You know, that's kind of like more Iowa, where it's like not as much the flashy, which unfortunately I don't think is a right move, but that's how they've always done it, you know, when they have got transfers. They don't really get a lot of transfers anyways, but, like, usually they go smaller school or even FCS level.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think Cade will have plenty of entertainers. I think you mentioned Notre Dame. I don't know if Notre Dame for certain, but I do believe that there will be plenty of takers. So Iowa's going to have competition, but you never know. And I don't know how NIL factors into all this as well.
Yeah, true. And that's one thing you never know either. But like I said, there's options out there, and I just would like to see us get an option. And what Padilla said too, Padilla didn't seem very, like, confident either about his future when they asked him the question. He was like, whatever happens, happens. Or, you know, like, he doesn't seem, like, worried about it, but he doesn't also seem like, you know, that excited. Like, he knows there might be a move coming. You know what I'm saying? By the way he said it, kind of, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
But we'll see. And obviously I missed most of the show, but it's going to be interesting to see, obviously, with all the COVID years, because, you know, COVID messes everything up with that fact. You don't know who has another year, who doesn't, who comes back. It's going to be interesting to see. But and it's all right. I think we definitely have to hit the transfer portal. I want to see what happens if we – obviously we do, but I want to see what happens if we don't. I think all hell would break loose if we don't. But, you know,
I said that last year, James.
Yeah, but this year was worse than last year. Last year, we're coming off 10-win seasons. And I'm not trying to be a Kirk about it, where he's like, oh, we won 10 games, made it to the Big Ten championship game. But
James, just so you're aware, I'm not put you on the spot. You need to get some From the Hawkeye of the Storm merch, sir.
All right, I will.
Oh, also, Ari Gold says he loves you.
That's the plan. That was always my plan, is to get merch. I just gotta wait till I get paid, because I kind of.
But did you see that Ari Gold loves you?
Yeah, at least somebody loves me, because
He
not many
loves you,
people.
man.
Not many people do. So.
Hey,
Sorry.
your girlfriend loves you too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so, at least, but it's all right. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. And are you gonna do a bowl game one where, like, you, once they announce the bowl game, you're gonna hop on again?
Yeah, we'll do
All right.
probably a Hawkeye hangout. Yep.
All right, cool. All right, enjoy your night.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Brian, for this compliment. Appreciate you being here. This was completely spontaneous. LH, what do you do to decompress after all this? I think I'm gonna get some lunch. How about that for decompressing after a 2-hour spontaneous live show? Yes, we're visiting family out of town today, and I wanted to be a part of this speculation, I guess is what you call it. We do news, we do post-game coverage, speculation, all of the above. Please subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already. Please hit that like button. If you're interested in sponsoring any of our content, you can reach out to me from the eye of the storm at outlook.com. The bottom ticker gives you a direction. You can become a premium subscriber by clicking join next to the channel name on YouTube. If you're watching on an iPhone or iPad, you may have to sign in on your desktop to do so. You can also donate to the channel. That's supporting this. If you want continuous coverage of Iowa football all year round, this channel needs support, folks. So appreciative to our sponsors, but also donations do help. Please don't assume that other people are doing this, because we need more donations. We need help to continue to give you continuous coverage day after day. You can share the show on social media. By the way, donations links are in the description below for Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. You can share the show on social media and follow me on Twitter @FromTheHawkeye if you want the latest on recruiting news. Obviously, some transfer portal speculation. I try to share as much as I can, although I needed to kind of compartmentalize the last few weeks. So I kind of tried to take a break from Twitter, and then I got bombarded with this news today. But you can also like the Facebook page from the Hawkeye of the Storm on Facebook. And remember, merch is out, folks. Description below. The merch is out. So support the channel by purchasing some merchandise here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. All right. Well, this has been another long live stream, unexpected live stream. Thank you all for being here. Again, we were here because of the CADE McNamara news that, yes, he has entered the transfer portal. Should Iowa make a move? Will Iowa make a move? Those are two very different questions. But be encouraged by the fact that Bruce Feldman did tweet this out earlier today, that Iowa is a school to keep an eye on. And I don't think he's just throwing mud at the wall, but we'll see. CADE McNamara is an option in the transfer portal for a Hawkeye team in desperate need of an upgrade at that position. Stay tuned, folks, right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Continuous coverage, Iowa men's basketball, Iowa women's basketball, and Iowa football coverage all year round.